If you're a filmmaker feeling a little bit frustrated with how this 2024 season is panning out so far, then I want to personally invite you inside of Taylor and I's Level Up Booking Bootcamp. Let's turn this booking season around and fill your calendar with incredible weddings, ones that include the right clients with bigger budgets and more inspiring events. You can do this. We're going to show you how. Enroll at thelevelupco.com/booking bootcamp, and we cannot wait to spend this 3-day workshop together with you in just a couple of weeks. So we will see you inside, and I hope that you enjoy this upcoming episode as well.
This is the Level Up Podcast. I'm Taylor Petrinovich.
And I'm Kelly Gilster of 618 Studios.
And we are on a mission to help filmmakers level up their businesses and their craft so they can make more and work less.
We want to help you confidently take your business from mainstream to luxury, and it all starts right here.
Hey friends, and welcome to another episode of the Level Up Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Petrinovich, and as it turns out, Kelly Gilster is at a corporate shoot today, so it's just me and our guest, Gabrielle Fordham. Gabrielle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Taylor. How are you?
I am also doing great. I actually just had my afternoon coffee, so I'm feeling very chipper. So you get an energetic version of me on the podcast today. We are so excited to bring you on to chat about your business and the growth that you've seen over the last few months specifically. But first, I would love to talk a little bit about how you got into the wedding filmmaking world.
That is a complicated but great question, Taylor. I would say that I stumbled into the wedding film world. My backgrounds from school are in interior design and psychology. So originally I thought that was going to be my life path, like one of those two disciplines. And I came out of school just super burnt out and kind of ready for something different. And my best friend at the time had started a film company and was doing amazing. This was like back in 2014 when small cameras for video were becoming like super like adept at capturing a wedding. So he blew up really quickly and just needed help with the editing specifically. So I started as an editor and really grew from there into filming, into leading my own team in that company, and eventually to today where I have my own company.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't feel like we hear from many people who start on the editing side and then like kind of pivot into the filmmaking side. So how is that actually like being an editor when you hadn't filmed any weddings yet?
I really enjoyed it. I feel like I learned how to shoot from editing, right? Like I'm always thinking about the moments of anything I'm capturing in terms of sequences of shots that I want to edit, because that's really where I learned. So it was hard at first to get a sense of an event, having never really even been to a wedding at that point in my life, which is kind of hilarious thinking now. But I really enjoyed it. My first wedding I edited, it took me, I think, 2 weeks to do like a 5-minute video, and I like handed it in, and my boss was like, great, love this, do it again. And so it was a, humbling moment, but those like experiences made me a lot better as an editor for sure.
Yeah, I feel like in the early days of like business and being a creative in your art form, like it can be so challenging to kind of get the ball rolling, and there's so many things that you don't know and you don't even know to like seek out information on how to do it. It's like really learning by a trial and error.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's really no better way to learn than just to experience something. And I'm so grateful that I really got to do that with this friend of mine and sort of get like a full taste for the wedding industry before I even stepped into it myself. I also think it's kind of strange to like start a business as someone who's been already operating in that industry for 6 years. Like I started with a ton of connections, with like a full understanding of how to sell and film and like deliver this beautiful wedding. So I was like a new business owner when I started, but also not. So it's kind of been like a funny journey for me, for sure.
Yeah. So when did you kind of branch out and create your own brand for filming weddings then?
It was in the beautiful ashes of the pandemic. Like, yeah, it was, my friend at that point was shifting careers. And so for me, it was sort of like really this big introspective moment of like, am I committed to this as a career? Or was this like a fun, 5-year journey? And I like remember sitting on my front porch just like full of anxiety, like, man, can I do this? Do I want to do this? Is this the direction I feel like I should be headed with my life? And I ultimately decided to like double down and dive in, like make more connections, continue to grow, jump into education, and just like, yeah, double down on learning, especially the entrepreneurial side of owning your own business. That was what I was like least familiar with coming into it.
Yeah, no, totally. Also, I just have to like applaud your very like poetic way of saying like the ashes of the pandemic, because like that's like what a visual. Like it was like kind of this like this sounds like so weird, but like this like rebirth moment of like the world and like everyone like starting fresh and new, and like of course there was like disaster as you would expect with this like visual of the ashes and stuff, but like a lot of good came from it too, and a lot of new businesses were born through the pandemic and stuff. And you're one of the business owners within the wedding industry who has hit the ground running and seen a lot of success and growth over the last just 3 years, because as we're sitting here recording, it's only September of 2023. So if you think about it, like we're really only like 2 years like out of like what I would consider like the pandemic time. So like
Yeah,
cheers to
that's
you.
crazy.
Like you have grown so fast.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like it's been forever, especially since I have been like filming for 8 years. But yeah, I guess it has been pretty quick. That's crazy.
Yeah, like when you think about it, it's like, wow, I really accomplished a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting start too, because I mean, in New York at least, that's where I'm from, weddings were limited to 30 people for a pretty long time. And so, I filmed my first elopement. I filmed my first, small intimate weddings, and I don't know, had a really cool opportunity where video became, I think, even more valuable, right? Like a 300-person wedding turns to 30, and suddenly like more than half your guests like can't come. And so I was excited to do video in those times, and I think it allowed me to be really present with these small groups of people and really start to see these like little moments in a wedding that I've been able to sort of like keep building on, even as like weddings have kind of come back to a normal place and are much larger and more expansive now.
Yeah. Well, so Kelly and I are both based in California. So, I mean, between California and New York, honestly, as far as states go in the US, like we probably like had the strictest rules when it came to gatherings and events through the pandemic. So, whereas some other states were a little bit more open, like we really had to like be scrappy with how we approached our businesses.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was definitely like a learning opportunity for a lot of us. So sitting here in 2023, can you give us like an overview of what your business looks like today? Like, where are you shooting? If you're comfortable getting into like what you're charging and kind of what that looks like.
Sure. Oh gosh, how do I summarize this? Today, I mean, I shoot a lot within kind of like the greater New York area. So I live in Syracuse, New York, which is near the Finger Lakes. A lot of my clients either grew up in the Finger Lakes, have a house here, have vacationed here, and so they're sort of like coming back to some sort of like family roots. So I shoot a lot in the Finger Lakes, Hudson Valley, and then I've started to expand outside of that to, I'm going to Connecticut next month to film a small wedding, and I was in Indiana earlier this year for this like super fun wedding on the Notre Dame campus. And so I'm kind of just starting to like dip my toe a little bit more into traveling within the US, which has been really fun to just see different places that are different. I've filmed the weddings that you're like on the boat, on the lake a lot, and they're so fun, but it has been fun to kind of see some different landscapes across the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think as creatives, like that is like a natural tendency to like only have the tolerance to do the same thing so many times before you're like, okay, I would love to shake it up at least a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do love the like family weddings. I'm probably a lot like Kelly in that regard. Like the family history, weddings that are just kind of anchored in tradition, but also have sort of this like fun, I don't know, chic vibe to it. Those are some of my favorites. So I've enjoyed that right now in my business. And you asked earlier about pricing. I mean, I feel like my rates are changing a lot right now, mainly because of the course that we just completed, the Luxury Filmmaker Framework, where I'm like working on rebranding and just kind of stepping into a different level of clientele. So earlier this year, I was probably around like 6,000 and heading more towards 10, I would say. Like that's sort of like a big range, but depending on like days of coverage and things like that, I'm somewhere in there right now and just hoping to keep growing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just, again, like for those of you who are listening who maybe have been filming weddings for quite a while longer, and like you're listening to Gabrielle's story, and it's like growth can happen quickly. Like it doesn't have to be this like decade long, thing that you're going through very slowly. Like once you kind of build a solid foundation of like knowing how to film, having the quality be there, like really there's like a very simple framework that you can follow. And all of a sudden now, like you're building a career that can financially sustain you without having to like shoot so many weddings and burning out like after just a couple of years. Like I feel like this is like the sustainable way to do your business justice, is to like scale in this way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you were in our mastermind. So for those of you listening who aren't familiar with like Level Up and like what we kind of have to offer, twice a year we are now opening doors to what is our signature offer, and it's kind of like split into a few different tiers. So the base tier is Luxury Filmmaker Framework, which is our like pre-recorded course that you have access to for a lifetime, and there'll be different updates rolled out as time goes on. But the middle tier is our mastermind tier. So you get access to the framework, which is like just the course, but then we also do a 12-week mastermind with a pretty intimate group of filmmakers. And we actually have some photographers coming in the next group as well, which is very exciting. But Gabrielle was in our our flagship group, which was so exciting. We literally just finished yesterday. And I would love to hear a little bit about like your experience and your perspective, what you learned. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, every week that we got on like the live Facebook call, I learned something. Like, in like the full course covers a lot of different aspects of business. So naturally, there's going to be some that are strengths for you and some where you're weak in. And so even in the areas that were maybe a strength for me, I still found myself learning these like little tips and tricks from you guys, which was really exciting and fun. And then there were some areas of the business where I was like, wow, I just need like a full readjustment of the way that I'm thinking about this, or like the attention I'm paying to a certain part. Like for example, I've always kind of disliked social media, we'll say. And I kind of did it like as an obligation, but it was never really like a joy. I didn't have a lot of vision for it. I don't think I understood like what it could really do for my business. And I remember you guys talking about how when your dream client arrives at your Instagram page, could they within 2 to 10 seconds quickly identify you as like their dream vendor? And that concept really stuck with me, and I was like, oh, that's the goal. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I mean, I do that when I'm like, looking at other people's profiles. Our judgments are so quick. And so I wanted people to be able to arrive at my profile now and immediately see like, yes, this is what I want. Or no. I mean, there's going to be people that arrive and say no too, and that's fine. But just like having more clarity in that has been so helpful. And that's just one of many things that I learned and hope to keep growing in for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's like so great to hear, because I feel like sometimes it's those like light bulb moments that are the most powerful. And that's kind of Kelly and my, is that grammatically correct? Kelly and I's job? Kelly and my job? I'm not sure. But that's kind of our job, is to like help people kind of shift their mindset, because we could give you all the practical tools and techniques that we have to offer, but without like the correct mindset going after it, like it's really not gonna like change anything in the end. So we're trying to like flip switches in people's minds and then lead you down the path of like how to implement the changes so that you can see like real results. And you've seen real results. Like you've raised your prices by thousands of dollars, like you going through a rebrand, like you have like all these amazing things on the horizon that I think are going to really catapult you forward in 2024 and in the years to come.
I hope so. I mean, I'm excited. It's fun to like kind of deep dive into all of this. And I think a lot of people, myself included, are just held back by fear. Like, can we do it? Do we have it in us? Are we good enough? Whatever the fear is. And I think just taking that step to do this education process the past 12 weeks has helped me move out of that fear and just into all these different like possibilities that I might have not even known existed prior to this course. I feel like it's opened my eyes to just like the depth, really, I guess, of the wedding market beyond my local context, which is really exciting. It's fun to like, you see it right on Instagram or whatever. You see everybody who's working at a higher caliber, but to have it like brought close to you and actually be able to engage with people who work in that caliber is totally different than just seeing it like from afar. So that's been super cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like lifting the veil. It's like seeing what's behind the curtain and the inner workings of how things kind of function, so that you can kind of utilize that information for your own business too.
Yeah, for sure. It's fun. And it's nice to do it with like a bunch of other people that are in the same boat trying to be awesome. And it's been great. I'm excited to keep doing it.
Yeah. So I would love to get into a little bit about what makes you unique. And this is something, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't really taken the time to think about your business to this level of depth, I hope that this podcast interview can kind of be something that inspires you to do it, because it can really move the needle far in your business to lay this foundation of like seeing what makes you unique as a filmmaker, as a creative, and utilizing that to differentiate yourself in the market. We kind of like to say that the market isn't like saturated. Like there is enough work to go around, but I think that there's a lot to be said for being as niche as you can be and targeting the people that are like, quote unquote, your people, right? And so you kind of alluded to this idea of family before and how you have that in common with Kelly as being like one of your values. So what are you doing on a wedding day, or even in like the time surrounding a wedding day, to really like lean into that for your films?
I'm so glad you asked this, because I've been thinking about like this question, like what does make me unique? And I guess I would boil it down to, this kind of sounds big, but like I'm really trying to capture like the essence of the human spirit. And that's a lofty goal. And it's not going to happen perfectly at every moment by any means, but I guess like an example of that from a recent wedding, I filmed my first Indian wedding this year, which was super fun, very colorful, exciting. And the bride side was mainly the ones like kind of leading a lot of the traditional elements. The groom's family is not Hindu, not familiar with some of these pieces, and so they were kind of like along for the ride. But I noticed early in the wedding day that the groom's mom, was always looking at him and kind of like checking in on him. You could just tell she was like one of those moms that like supports her son in anything he does, like to her fullest degree. And I kind of was like looking for an opportunity to capture that essence of their relationship during the wedding day. And there was this moment during the Bharat, which, if you're not familiar with an Indian wedding, there's this parade that the groom goes on to move toward the bride's family at the start of the ceremony. And so people are like dancing. It's really vibrant and fun. At this wedding in particular, the DJ had like a truck full of speakers that was like leading everyone. And at the front of the crowd was the groom's mom in this like beautiful pink sari, spinning in circles, like just dancing like she was like grew up in this culture, like meant to be there from the beginning, and she was just so full of joy and like so supportive of her son in that moment. And I remember like literally tearing up like capturing this, because I was like, I got it. Like I've got the like thing. So at every wedding, like that's what I'm looking for. It looks different every time, but just these little moments that really capture like a relationship, or just like the essence of joy, or some other type of emotion on the wedding day. And when I do that, I feel like those are my most successful films for sure.
Yeah. No, that's so cool. I feel like there's just so many different kinds of people with different values and preferences. And while some brides, for example, just like kind of make it easy, like they really just want like a party, like, and they want a party film and fun vibes. And like, I feel like on the opposite end of the spectrum is this like really sweet, like emotional, like attention to detail when it comes to the family, and like bringing in this like heirloom quality to a film. And I feel like knowing who you are as a filmmaker and like what inspires you and leaning into that and then branding around that is like what's going to draw in your people. So I feel like if you like really like capitalize on the opportunity with that like mom and like showing her like joy in how well you capture this like family moment, I feel like it's going to draw in more of the same.
Yeah, I feel like on that spectrum, I'm like somewhere in the middle. Like, I'm definitely not the like, this is a party video, that's only music, but you know, I don't want people to necessarily like cry the whole time they're watching the video either. So finding like that middle place of an anchored family that loves to have fun is like my sweet spot for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So what are you doing on a wedding day then that like enables you to see this? Because I feel like there are a lot of filmmakers out there who are very like tunnel visioned, like they're looking at the timeline and they're like checking things off the list, like, yeah. But I feel like this is more of like an happening in between.
Yeah, for sure. I think part of it is just, and this might come with experience over time, is like learning how to be present in the emotions that people are having, right? Like walking into something and asking like, how do the guests see this? How does the couple see this? How does the family see this? Not just what's on the timeline. And you have to know both, of course. I think being able to be present comes from having a really good understanding of what's about to happen. It definitely helps you to like feel calm and like things are under control. But yeah, I think when I'm able to be present, that's the best times. There was another wedding last weekend where I was at the grandparents' house and I knew the grandma had passed, but she was like really meaningful to the family, and I was like, oh, you know, I should ask the mom what in this house like represents her mother to her. And so then I was kind of taken on this like tour of the home, and I got to capture all these like little things that I would never have been able to discern that was important. But by being present and asking like one question, now their video is full of these small details that to them like mean the world. And to me, I mean, I would never have known. So just being able to be present and like maybe ask one good question can really like change a video so much.
I feel like that's like the perfect little snippet to like cut out and like plaster everywhere online. Like such a key takeaway. And I feel like that is, like you said, like some things only come from experience and like knowing like what to look for over time. Like in the beginning of our careers, like obviously like filmmaking is a very technical skill. Like there's a lot going on. So in the beginning, like we maybe just like focused on that, but as you become more comfortable as a filmmaker and like experience more and like see the value of films for what they are, then you kind of like can know to like look for certain things and ask the questions too. Do you put anything on your questionnaire that would prompt useful information to be answered like that for you?
Good question. I do ask about family, and just kind of like who's important to you and why. Right now, my current workflow involves talking to most of my clients prior to the event, which has been really nice. I enjoy asking deep questions, so I feel like I have a lot more opportunity to do that when I'm able to hop on a video call with someone. But in my questionnaire, I do ask about family dynamics and traditions, and not just like what they are, but what they mean. So that could be like a shift people might need to make, is not just asking like what's happening, but what about what's happening is important. I think that's been really helpful.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. I love the idea of like open-ended questions to ask the clients. And so for those of you listening, like some of you are kind of straddling this like mainstream versus luxury market. So some of your communication may be with the planner or some of it may be with the client. I would say if you're client facing in like your communication, like it's easier to ask these questions. And something that's like I like to ask when I send questionnaires to clients is, what should I know going into your wedding day? What information would you find helpful? And sometimes just this very simple open-ended question like opens you up to so much knowledge. Like you don't know which questions to ask sometimes because you don't know what you don't know, right? And so like allowing them the opportunity to tell you can be very eye-opening. And then for planner facing, sometimes, okay, so this has like been my current process is when I'm communicating with planners, I'll give them the option like, hey, like I have this questionnaire. If it's not stepping on your toes or going against like your workflow, like you can send it, or would you be willing to please obtain this information on my behalf? And then I really try to like whittle down my questionnaire to just like the most need to know pieces of information. Like, this is not where I'm asking how many flower girls you have on your wedding day. You know, that's like not really need to know. It's a little bit more deep than that.
Yeah. As you were talking, one question I ask, which I think is maybe helpful, is like 5, 10, 20 years down the road, what do you hope this film communicates about who you are?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's kind of a fun one. And not everyone fills it out. Some people are like, I have no idea. But some people have written like paragraphs to me in that question. And that's definitely shaped my approach to the wedding day for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. Like we've said a few times, like some people like really want that like heirloom quality to their film, and they want in 50 years for it to like mean a certain thing to like them and their family. And like this is the beginning of like their family tree, you know what I mean? So some people really value that. And I feel like when you have clients that connect with questions like on that level, like I almost feel like it builds so much trust between you and them, because it's like, wow, like you care enough about what I care about to ask it. Like just the fact that you asked builds that kind of trust and camaraderie. So whether you're a filmmaker who values family like that, or the party or the destination or whatever it is, like thinking of these like questions that you can ask that would kind of signal to your client like, hey, I understand you and I want to know more about this because I care, I feel like is a really great way to provide like an over the top like client experience. Yeah.
That was beautifully said, Taylor. Love that.
Thanks. Just kidding. I appreciate that. I would love to hear a little bit about maybe some like actionable things that you've done just over the past couple of months that have like helped you grow your business, because you said that like you were starting at like 6,000 and now you're heading more towards 10,000. And the math is saying that's close to a double in pricing, which is a great way to look at it. Like I love to look at price increases by percentages instead of like numbers, because percentage gives you the whole story of the gravity of your price increase. So what are like some of the things that you've put into place to make this happen?
Oh, I feel like I'm in the middle of a lot of things. One would be, one thing I'm changing is really my branding overall. Since I started in the ashes of the pandemic, I mean, I like bootstrapped the business and wrote my name in a cool font. Like that was branding at the time. And I fully understand that is not the true essence of branding. So I hired a designer and have gotten to go through a really great rebrand process with them so we could have a new logo and colors and things like that. So I have all of those assets and I'm working on implementing them over time. And so that's been and will continue to be a big change. I still have yet to really like fully pull that through on my website, but I'm excited to do that. And then I guess the other biggest place of change would be my Instagram. I deleted a lot of posts, just things that didn't really serve my ideal client very well. And now I'm a lot more thoughtful about what I'm putting on my Instagram and highlighting especially like weekend long events, because I love that amount of time spent with a client. And so I would like to do more of those. So I'm highlighting more of that as a result. Yeah.
So you're just a couple years into business, but like I already see so much potential in your growth, in your future. So what is kind of like your ultimate goal when it comes to being a wedding filmmaker and in this industry?
I would love to work more in the luxury market. There's so many talented event planners and photographers and florists, and just really like the team that works in a luxury space really inspires me. And so I'm hopeful and excited to be part of teams like that more and more. Like I want to be a great teammate in the luxury space and be a great support to the fellow creatives, as well as like serve my clients super well. And I feel like I'm in process of that, right? Like I'm working on my branding. I'm working on making a lot of new connections. I found with my business that I've got like a few planners in particular that I love working with and hope to continue to work with. But a lot of my maybe more local connections don't have the clientele that I'd like to be working with moving forward. So thanks to the Luxury Filmmaker Framework, I have some great actionable steps to do that, which I'm grateful for. Ways to naturally connect with planners, especially, and even photographers or other creatives in the luxury industry. So I'm looking forward to kind of moving ahead with some of those steps after I fully launch my new brand.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch like business growth, as I've like alluded to it before in the podcast, but I kind of see it as like a game of chess. Actually, have you ever watched The Queen's Gambit on Netflix? I'm like in the middle of watching it, so maybe I just have chess on the brain.
Gambit. The Queen's Gambit is so good. I mean, I'm a little bit obsessive when it comes to a TV show. Like once I start something, it's often done like by the end of the week, which is terrible. But yes, love The Queen's Gambit.
It's a great show. If you guys have not watched it, like highly recommend. Anyway, it's about chess. But it's fun to watch it as like a chess game, because it's like all of these intricate pieces that are moving in your business, and like which one should come first in order to like trigger the next one, so that you can get the most out of it. And there really is kind of like a method that is tried and true that both Kelly and I have implemented in our own businesses, and that we have taught now like over 100 filmmakers like how to do this very specific process. And it's really fun to watch it like play out on an individual level, like watching you specifically, Gabrielle, like what you're doing and how you're implementing things and what that's going to do for you over the next like 5 years, because a lot of it's like the long game. It's like setting yourself up for future success. And I'm 100% certain that you're going to like enter the luxury market in a really like strong and powerful way. And you're going to do really great things. So
thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, it is hard, like you said, to kind of know what to do first, but something I really liked about the course was it felt natural to a lot of things I was already doing. Like I've always believed that a good business has to have a really strong foundation. And if you don't have those like foundational elements, you're eventually kind of going to build this tower of success to a place where you can't like hold it up anymore and it's going to crumble. And so I've always wanted to build a strong foundation before like reaching for the stars, because I want it to support like growth, but I also want it to support like my life and my like family, and not feel like this kind of overwhelming monster that sometimes businesses can feel like when they're maybe not carefully like cared for along the way, I guess.
yeah. So at the time that this airs, last week on the podcast, I had Jake Weisler and Nate Tehan on, and they talked a lot about their like core values as like business owners, and family was like one of the 3 values that they used as kind of like a litmus test when it came to like which clients they were going to take, because they basically just said what you said, like they want to make sure that they have a business that like adds to their life and doesn't take away from their family, like where I feel like that can be a really fuzzy line sometimes, and it's really easy to like take all the clients and like sign contracts and take deposits, and that's like really fun on like the booking side, but then like when it's time to go actually like do the work, like now that's like a different story. And so making sure that you like set yourself up, you're really intentional with clients that you're taking, and making sure you've built a business that you feel fulfilled by as an artist, and like finding what it is that fulfills you, that's gonna like make for a better business in the end than just taking all of the work that comes your way.
Definitely. Yeah, I feel like a lot of creatives especially start a business because they have a passion, they want to be able to do that passion, and the business side is like secondary a little bit, but it's so important because it's so easy for what you're building to just like kind of get out of control and take over your life, and you look back and you're like, wow, I don't have any time. I feel like every moment of my life is occupied by thinking about this. And for most people, I don't think that's why they become an entrepreneur. Like if you wanted, like, I don't know, like you generally want freedom in your work, and in order to achieve that, the goals have to be clear, which is what I'm learning. And it sounds like what you talked about last week, in having like certain boundaries so you know what work to take or not take and for what reasons.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if a filmmaker is maybe finding themselves in your shoes, maybe they, they're a few years into business and they're thinking like, okay, wow, yeah, what I'm doing right now maybe is not the most sustainable thing, and I'm not feeling all the way fulfilled, and I'm kind of ready to take my business to the next level. Like, what would you say to them? And then would you be willing to give kind of like maybe your honest take on whether you think that like Luxury Filmmaker Framework and Mastermind would be a good fit for them, and how they can kind of make that decision?
I think if you're at a similar place that I was earlier this year, you probably need community. Being a business owner can be really lonely. I personally don't like shoot with my husband. He's not a business owner. So there's not this like sort of natural built-in partnership that happens for me. And I kind of recognized that I needed help in support and community, as well as education and like actionable tools and items and things to do and learn and grow in. So if you're in that space, then I think Luxury Filmmaker Framework is great. It's a great place to grow and to be able to really look at the scope of your business and identify your strengths and weaknesses, and just be able to celebrate with others and encourage others in the places that you do have strengths and have gained wisdom over the years of your business so far. But then to also be taught by like Kelly and Taylor and really the whole group, and just be able to learn about the areas that maybe you're a little bit weaker in, that if you did have the right tools, you'd be awesome. So I recommend it. I mean, I don't know if we already talked about this, but I was kind of like unsure if I should hop in on this. Other groups I've been in the past haven't always been the most helpful, honestly. Sometimes I felt like the conversation gets really quickly derailed and like never quite comes back on the train tracks. And I feel like that just wasn't the case here with the way that the course is structured and the leadership of Kelly and Taylor. Like they really kept things on track, and I appreciated that so much because I felt like we were really able to grow and like stay focused on the goals, which was awesome.
I'm so glad that was your experience. It was so fun. So the way it's structured is like all of us hop onto a Zoom meeting like once a week, and Kelly and I kind of approach it from like, we instruct for 30 minutes to an hour, and then we open it up to Q&A, and that like gives so much time for discussion. And I even feel like people who didn't want to like ask their questions, they still sat in on the Q&A because like, again, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And so like you kind of learn a lot from like other people's questions and like things that you may never have thought to ask yourself. Like now you're getting those answers too. Anyway, it was such a cool experience, and we are actually getting ready to open up the doors to Luxury Filmmaker Framework and Mastermind again. Doors will be opening on October 10th, which is very exciting and very soon. So if you're listening to this and interested in hopping in the next group, you can go to thelevelupco.com/luxury filmmaker framework and hop on the wait list, and you'll kind of get like first dibs to hop in. We did sell out within the first 48 hours last time we launched, and so I would hate for someone listening to like want to have a seat in Mastermind, but you just didn't hop on it quick enough. So if you get on the wait list, then you kind of have first dibs to it, and so that's what we would recommend. But Gabrielle, your story is so inspiring, and I think that the way you're approaching your business and brand, like if you guys listen to the How to Film Weddings podcast, we're friends with John and Nick. They're awesome, but they love to talk about the crockpot method instead of the microwave method. And I feel like you have been really doing that, and like you're laying that foundation so that your big successful business here in a couple of years is not going to topple and fall. And so kudos to you.
Definitely the crockpot. I like to simmer on an idea for sure. That's a fun metaphor.
Cool. So if someone is listening to this and wants to find you and follow along with your work, where can they do that?
Yeah, you can eventually check out my newly rebranded website at GabrielleFordham.com, and you can definitely follow along the way and all the steps of the journey on my Instagram, Gabrielle Fordham Films.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, please help us reach more filmmakers just like you by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media. Don't forget to tag us at The Level Up Co.
And join us again next week, same time, same place, as we continue to level up the industry together.